Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of 1987's Predator. This is the first installment of our Predator Rewatch series as we count down the weeks to Predator Badlands. Let's go through John McTiernan's original film, scene by scene, for all the interesting details you might have missed, and you may have heard some bogus myths about this movie. We're gonna clear up the actual facts of Predator in this movie breakdown. Now, we did make a separate version of this video released early and ad-free, exclusive to channel members, and you can get future installments of this Predator Rewatch series the same way by becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. Thank you so much. Okay, Predator opens on the vast starfield of outer space as a fast approaching starship appears in the distance and races to Earth. We're actually reminded of the opening shot of John Carpenter's The Thing from 1983. This movie will be yet another man versus creature survival story that explores masculinity within group dynamics. The alien craft is a Yautja ship, but the moniker of Yautja wasn't invented until years later by Steve and Stefani Perry for their 1994 novel Alien vs. Predator Prey, a novelization of the original Alien vs. Predator comic series. Along with the name, they also created a Yautja language for the novel and greatly expanded knowledge of their biology and culture. The species has also been referred to as the Hishkuten in other media, and sometimes just by the term hunters. But while we did learn other things about the Yautja's history in the Alien vs. Predator films, the use of the term Yautja was really made official by Dan Trachtenberg using the term Yautja in his animated Predator Killer of Killers in this year, and looks to expand on it more in Predator Badlands. The ship launches a pod down to Earth's surface with our hunter inside. This is the only look we get of the ship in this film, and we never see the pod that actually gets the Predator to the surface. The sci-fi elements in this movie are pretty contained overall. In fact, the Predator itself only has about 8 minutes of actual screen time, and we don't even see him uncloaked until nearly an hour into the film. Similar to the Xenomorph in the first Alien, or Bruce the Mechanical Shark in Jaws, it's more effective in many of these films to not show the threat as it's hunting the humans. The working title for this movie was just Hunter, based on a script by first-time writers and brothers Jim and John Thomas. Their original idea was a group of alien hunters coming to Earth to hunt all sorts of things, but that story would eventually be refined to the idea of really just one alien hunter coming to Earth to hunt the most dangerous species, man. They finished their initial spec script in September 1983. Producer and president of Fox Entertainment, Lawrence Gordon, in 1984 later bought it. Joel Silver was also brought on as a producer, and thanks to his work on 1985's Commando, he had close connections with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Screenwriter David Peoples also did some rewrites on the script when there were some initial production delays. Fox would eventually change the title from Hunter to Predator, possibly to avoid confusion with the popular television crime drama Hunter in the 80s. But nobody ever refers to the creature in this film as the Predator, but they do say at one point he kills, quote, like a hunter. For the purposes of this breakdown, and for all the breakdowns in our Predator Rewatch series, we're going to use a lot of different terms. We'll call it the Yautja, we'll call it the Predator, we'll call it the Hunter, we'll call it the creature, whatever makes sense. And that also includes the same name used by the fandom to distinguish these different predators from each other. And the fandom name for the creature in this film is Jungle Hunter. Alan Silvestri composed the music for this film, coming off of his iconic work for Back to the Future. He would later compose the Captain America theme and the Avengers themes for Marvel Studios. This movie, Predator, is directed by John McTiernan, who immediately after this film would go on to direct Die Hard and then The Hunt for Red October. New Rockstars actually broke down Die Hard several years ago. You can watch that here. We jump to a US military base nestled in a fishing village somewhere in Central America. A helicopter full of mercenaries lands on the beach. As the men come off the helicopter, we can see one of them wearing a shirt with the MTV logo. MTV first started broadcasting in August of 1981, so this was still a relatively cool new brand when this film was shot in 1986. More on the rest of the crew in the moment, but for now, our focus is drawn to the man in the shadows in the back. Shown smoking a cigar in silhouette is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dutch, the leader of this band of ex-military personnel. Schwarzenegger's a big fan of cigars. He has worked them a lot into his roles. He's been on the cover of Cigar Aficionado 5 times. Arnold actually got self-admitted clean living athlete Carl Weathers hooked on cigars during production. Dutch's tight red shirt here reminds me of Arnold's look in Last Action Hero, released in 1993, also directed by John McTiernan and written by Shane Black, who acts in this movie. Grizzled General Phillips is played by character actor R.G. Armstrong, who appeared in many westerns and horror films over his long career. We're never really told what charming little country this film takes place in, or what borders the military and CIA are operating on. They're just located in generic Central America, which would have resonated with audiences in the 1980s who were used to hearing about America covertly meddling in the affairs of Central American nations like Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras by supporting regime changes and right-wing governments in order to thwart a perceived communist threat. The general shows Dutch a map of where the helicopter's transponder was last recorded, and this prop is actually a map of central Brazil, showing the Chapada das Mangarbaras mountains. Given that we later hear the gorillas speaking Spanish, and these mountains are nowhere near the border of Brazil, it's safe to say that this film does not take place in Brazil. The movie's novelization implies that the action of this film takes place in Guatemala, and a later Dark Horse Predator comic by Mark Verheiden would later say that the events happen in Colombia, but the 2010 film Predators states that the events of the film take place in Guatemala, so that's what I've always gone with. There are also some that think that the events of the film happened in Val Verde, a fictional South American country invented by screenwriter Stephen E. D'Souza for Commando. The 2020 video game Predator Hunting Grounds also supports the Val Verde theory. The general can't send the military to rescue the cabinet minister, so he needs Dutch, but someone from the CIA will be tagging along, and that brings us to one of the most iconic moments in cinema history. This is just the beginning of the beefcake showcase we're gonna get in this 80s action flick. The original script even has the moment specifically written out. Their hands slapped together in a gesture of friendship, their forearms bulging, testing each other's strength. Dylan is played by Carl Weathers, fresh off his appearances as Apollo Creed in the Rocky films. He also played Greef Karga in The Mandalorian. Rest in peace, Carl Weathers. There was a lot of competition and one-upsmanship among the actors to look big and buff, especially among Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, and Jesse Ventura. Schwarzenegger even convinced the costume department to trick Ventura into thinking he had bigger biceps than Arnold, so that when they measured them in person, Ventura would be bested. Dylan and Dutch are old buddies from their military days. Dylan remembers hearing about Dutch's work in Berlin, which at the time would have been a reference to the divided East and West Germany, and specifically the city of Berlin during the Cold War. Dylan asks Dutch why he passed on a job in Libya, and Dylan says,
"We are a rescue team, not assassins."
Maybe they wanted Dutch to assassinate Muammar Gaddafi? Dylan gives the general a sly look after Dutch's response here, our first clue that something is amiss with this supposed rescue mission. Dutch's statement will also seem pretty wild later on as his team blows up and guns down a ton of guerrillas when they find their camp. Dylan lays out the plan.
Simple setup, one-day operation. We pick up their trailer at the chopper, run them down, grab those hostages, and bounce back across the border before anybody knows we were there.
On the chopper ride to the drop point, Little Richard's Longtail Sally kicks in, playing diegetically from the boombox, and we meet the team. Big tough man Blaine, played by Jesse Ventura, pro wrestler and future governor of Minnesota. Yeah, this film has two future state governors in it. Blaine chews tobacco, claiming it will make them all a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus, and then he drops a homophobic slur. The 80s. Jesse Ventura did serve in the Navy as part of their underwater demolition team, a predecessor to the Navy SEALs. And then there's Poncho, the explosives expert, played by Richard Chaves. The actor actually served in Vietnam as part of the US Army and brought some of that real experience to this role. Poncho is focused and level-headed, which will come in handy when they encounter the jungle hunter. Plus, he speaks Spanish, which will also be helpful. Then there's Hawkins, the radio operator, played by Shane Black, best known for writing films like Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout, and Last Action Hero, as well as for writing and directing movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which gave Robert Downey Jr. his career again, as well as The Nice Guys and Iron Man 3. He would go on to write and direct his own Predator movie, 2018's The Predator. Producers tried to get Shane Black to do a rewrite on this Predator script, but he passed, so they decided to cast him in the movie, hoping he would do some on-the-fly rewrites on set, which he reportedly did. This includes a lot of the crass jokes his character tells throughout the movie. The director admitted that those were all Shane Black's. In the helicopter, Hawkins reads what looks like a comic book. It's hard to make out in this scene with the red light, but during the end credits of the movie, he's shown to be reading a Sergeant Rock comic from DC Comics, specifically Sergeant Rock number 408, released in February 1986, around the time they were shooting this film. Supposedly, Predator producer Joel Silver was trying to put together a Sergeant Rock movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, with John McTiernan directing, hence him trying to plant a Sergeant Rock comic in this film. That Sergeant Rock movie never came to be. There are conflicting reports about why the movie fell apart, with some stating that Arnold dropped after learning the film would shoot in Yugoslavia and not in the United States, and director John McTiernan claims that John Cleese turning down a major role in the film because he didn't want to be in a movie made by what he said were thug American action movie makers caused it to fall apart. But Joel Silver at the time thought his Sergeant Rock movie was going to happen because the comics were all over the set. Since James Gunn's plans for a Sergeant Rock movie directed by Luca Guadagnino, starring either Daniel Craig or Colin Farrell, also seemed to fall apart this year, it may just be a cursed title. Also on this team, we have Billy, played by Sonny Landham. Billy is the silent and stoic Native American tracker. Hawkins constantly tries to crack him up with his dirty jokes. The film's novelization states that he's half Sioux Indian and half Italian. He catches early on that something's amiss in the jungle. An earlier draft of the script featured a Native American soldier as the main protagonist of the film, but this was changed as Arnold was brought in as the lead, and that character eventually became Billy. You could easily see how this character might be a sort of prototype for the role Naru would play in Dan Trachtenberg's later film Prey. Sonny Landham did run for governor of Kentucky in 2003, but he was not as successful in gubernatorial politics as his Predator co-stars. Then there's Mac, who silently runs a disposable razor across his face as they ride into action. This was also a character chase made by actor Bill Duke, who also starred in Commando with Arnold. Bill Duke would also later play Trask in X-Men The Last Stand. For this razor bit, the production team had to rig up on the fly a razor that would bleed for a shot later in the film. Dylan shows the boys a lighter with the US Army Special Forces Airborne insignia, recalling how he and Dutch both got one for their work in Vietnam, north of Hue in 1972. This is likely referencing North Vietnam's Easter Offensive during the Vietnam War, which saw major fighting in that area as the North Vietnamese army pushed south. We get a shot of the helicopter pilot using a green thermal imaging screen as they navigate over the jungle, showing the other helicopter's engine glowing hot, a slight tease of how the Jungle Hunter will use its own form of thermal imaging. Now, we are not going to see the Yautja for a while in this movie, but let's discuss its design. The version of the creature that we know and love was not the original design used in the film. When the production on Predator began, Voss Film Studios was hired to create the antagonist for the film based on concepts from director John McTiernan. The result was a more insect-looking creature with legs that bent backwards, requiring the actor who wore it to use 12-inch stilts. And that actor turned out to be up-and-coming action movie star Jean-Claude Van Damme, who was brought in to give the alien an agile and martial arts-based fighting style. Filming began before the costume was finished, but when it finally showed up on set, there was disappointment with the final product. Van Damme found it difficult to move through the jungle in the costume, and it had issues with overheating. Others claim that he just wanted to include too many of his signature kicks when fighting, despite being given the note that he shouldn't do that. And there was the fact that at 5'9", Van Damme didn't look too imposing when standing next to Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, and Jesse Ventura, who were all above 6'2" with tall bodybuilder physiques. The decision was made to halt filming and make some changes to the creature design. So Arnold recommended Stan Winston, having worked with Winston and his team on The Terminator. Stan Winston and his team redesigned the creature and built a new costume within 6 weeks. Winston based a lot of his design on a painting of an otherworldly Rastafarian warrior that he saw in producer Joel Silver's office, which explains why the creatures have those fleshy dreadlocks. Actor and mime artist Kevin Peter Hall was brought in to replace Jean-Claude Van Damme as the hunter, who even without the costume stood 7 feet 2 inches tall. He also played the Sasquatch in the same year as Harry and the Hendersons. Part of Stan's redesign included some additional weaponry that wasn't in the original script, such as the plasma caster and the biomask. And the idea for the creature to have mandibles came from a conversation that Stan Winston had with James Cameron when they shared a flight to Japan while Cameron was working on Aliens. And the rest is history. So back to the action. As the crew repels into the jungle, they are now fully on their own. The film was shot in the jungles of Mexico, in Palenque, Chiapas, and in locations near Puerto Vallarta. Most of the cast got sick at some point during filming due to poor water filtration at their hotel. When the mercenaries first land, we see how they are prepared to use the jungle as their advantage as hunters, moving as silently as possible, wearing camouflage on their bodies and faces, listening acutely to their surroundings, and of course, bringing a massive amount of weaponry to overpower whatever enemy they find. You can see Blaine carrying the ammo for the minigun he'll bust out later on his back, and the gun itself under a tarp attached to his hip. They find the downed helicopter tangled upside down in the canopy of the trees. The cabinet minister is not there, and the pilots have been shot in the head. The team is already noticing some suspicious things. The helicopter was downed by a heat-seeking rocket, which Dutch thinks is a little sophisticated for this group of guerrilla fighters. It's also more foreshadowing for how the jungle hunter sees with an infrared heat-seeking vision. We finally get our first spoken line from the stoic Billy in a nice little rack focus.
There were 12 guerrillas. They took the 2 men from the helicopter, but there's something else. 6 men wearing U.S.-issued army boots. They came in from the north, and then they followed the guerrillas.
Dylan tries to claim that these were just more guerrillas, but we'll later learn that they were Green Berets out of Fort Bragg. As they follow the trail, Pancho asks Dutch,
"Do you remember Afghanistan?"
Trying to forget it. Come on.
This could be a reference to the CIA's Operation Cyclone that started in 1979 and funneled money and weapons to the Mujahideen rebels in Afghanistan to try to destabilize the Soviet Union's control over the region. Dutch's crew must have been involved in some rescue missions there. But it is a cogent warning from Pancho, since we'll soon learn that this is another covert CIA versus Soviet Union mix-up here in the jungle. Billy drinks from a vine. It's so cool how he knows to do that. And he zeroes in on the trail, and we actually hear the sound of the jungle hunter for the first time. The Yautja is clearly watching his prey move through the jungle. To a first-time audience, this is just another creepy jungle sound in the background, but it does subconsciously plant the noise in the mind, priming us for when we hear the vocalization again later. It's also confirmation that the jungle hunter has been following these guys from the moment they landed, which sets up the very creepy twist at the end when we realize that creature recorded Billy's laugh. Billy finds the 3 skinned and mutilated bodies hung upside down, vultures and crows pick at the corpses. Someone even gives the vulture a swift kick, though it's a shot we only see the legs. I hope this was the animal wrangler on set and that they didn't let Shane Black punt a bird. They find the dog tags belonging to a Jim Hopper, whom Dutch knows as a Green Beret out of Fort Bragg. No, this is probably not Jim Hopper from Stranger Things, though if you want to believe that theory, go for it. This Jim Hopper's dog tags read C.E. Hopper, so it was Charles or something and he just changed it to Jim. Social security number 555-882571. O positive blood type, the most common type, and Catholic. So someone better give this guy his last rites. Poncho does do the sign of the cross as he approaches the bodies. The gang thinks this gory scene is the work of the gorillas, but it was actually the jungle hunter skinning and disemboweling its prey like a hunter might do to a deer. It's worth noting that the jungle hunter did not take any of these men's skulls, something he will do later, so it must have not deemed them worthy as trophies. And we never find out what he did with the other 3 bodies. These guys want revenge on the gorillas, so they bust out the minigun named Old Painless for a little payback on their fallen army buddies. It's probably named that because the GE M134 minigun would kill you so fast you wouldn't feel any pain. As they trek onward, we get our first look from the jungle hunter's point of view, whose biomask allows him to see with an infrared thermal vision. The Yautja's vision without the mask is less accurate, which we see later on in the film. The filmmakers created this effect by using an inframetrics thermal video scanner, which is a type of FLIR camera, or forward-looking infrared camera. This was a rather groundbreaking effect at the time, with Predator being the first feature film to utilize this technology. This is all done by R. Greenberg Associates, who handled all the optical effects for the film. Using the FLIR camera did come with some challenges though. There was no way to record the camera's image to film at the time, so a cable was run from the infrared camera to a monitor in a van where the regular camera filmed the image produced by the infrared camera. The warmth of the surrounding jungle environment also affected the camera, so to make the actors stand out from the jungle, they would spray all the surrounding foliage down with cold water from trucks. They also would use hair dryers to warm up parts of the actors' bodies to make them stand out more, or would even have the actors stand near large fires before they would shoot the take. We also learned from this shot that the Yautja's hearing ability is echoey with a constant hum. I know I should have a physical every year, but every year I put it off. Finding a doctor that is in my network can be such a hassle. The amount of time I've spent on automated phone trees only to wind up talking to a human whose solution is to put me into another phone tree is enough to make me just say, I don't need to see a doctor that bad after all. But then I finally had something go wrong with my foot and I just could not ignore it and I had to see a doctor. I had to find another way, and what I found was ZocDoc, today's video sponsor. ZocDoc makes it easy to find the right doctor for you fast so that you can stop putting it off and finally cross that appointment off your list. ZocDoc is a free website where you can search and compare high quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, and click to instantly book an appointment. From mental health to dentistry, eye care, skin care, and everything in between. And ZocDoc isn't just one type of doctor, they have more than 100,000 providers across nearly every specialty. It's the one-stop shop for all your healthcare needs, plus it's completely free. My favorite part is that you can see the doctor's actual appointment openings, choose a time that works for you, and click to instantly book a visit without having to get on the phone. My back hurt, I didn't know why, and I was able to find a physical therapist who helped me out instantly. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. No need to call doctor's offices and wait on hold either. ZocDoc lets you do everything online. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/newrockstars or click the link in the description to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Dutch turns at one point, looking into the trees. He either senses that they're being watched or just maybe he hears movement, which causes him to look up, right where the jungle hunter is watching him. He will realize later that the hunter is moving along the treetops. Mac warns Dylan,
"I'll bleed you real quiet. Leave you here. Got that?"
Max seems to be the most unstable of the group, which will become clear when he snaps later after Blaine's death. They find the rebel base camp, and Dutch watches as a hostage is ruthlessly executed after saying "F you to his captor, but unlike the other guerrillas at the camp who speak Spanish, this executioner is speaking Russian. The crew goes in hard. This sequence is 80s action movie core at its best. The amount of gunfire and explosions and just dudes on fire and bodies flying through the air again and again and again and again is insane. But this excess serves a point in the movie as a contrast to the more contained killings of the Predator that it unleashes on its targets. Like, the Yautja needs to watch these humans do this in order to consider them worthy trophies. And later on in the movie, when the Yautja gets clumsy and explosive like this, that's when he starts acting like the lesser life form and himself transitions into becoming the prey. Blaine gets to let old Painless do its thing, something Jesse Ventura was really proud of. The M134 minigun is usually mounted on a helicopter, so in order to use it handheld in the film, it had to be powered by an electric cable that was hidden off screen. They also had to slow the rate of fire from 6,000 RPMs to 1250 RPM so that the barrels could even be seen rotating on screen instead of just being a blur. This also helped reduce the recoil of the weapon, but still, Ventura said, quote,
"It's like shooting a chainsaw."
Even with slowing the rate of fire, the minigun went through its rounds really fast. So you'll notice there are no long shots of it firing, just very short takes. The helicopter tries to take off and it's blown to smithereens. This stuntman is engulfed in flames, which is wild to see. There's no CG here. And to the credit of stunt coordinator Craig R. Baxley, there are no major injuries on set from any of the stunts in this sequence. We see some crates labeled US Army, another indication that these guerrillas, while working with the Russians, were possibly also secretly being supplied by the CIA. There are some classic Schwarzenegger signature lines during this battle. Arnold throws his knife into a dude and then just says,
"Stick around."
Director John McTiernan admitted this was done to help get rid of the prop knife so Arnold didn't have to carry it around for the rest of the scene since it's weighed a lot. We also get a
knock, knock.
A joke that was inspired by Looney Tunes, according to the director. The man that Arnold blasts here after the knock-knock quip is that Russian officer who we saw execute the hostage moments earlier. Dylan will later eagerly grab the documents he's sorting through here. The officer is played by Sven Ole Thorsen, a bodybuilding buddy of Arnold's who appeared in a few of his movies. Poncho points out that Blaine had been shot at some point during the battle, and we get another one of the film's most memorable lines.
"You're hit. You're bleeding, man."
I ain't got time to bleed.
Now, someone almost gets a jump on Dutch, but he knocks him out and discovers it's a woman. This is Anna, played by Elpidia Carrillo. Matt confirms that the other hostage is dead too, and much like the man Dutch saw executed by the Russian officer, he clearly wasn't a Central American cabinet minister. He assumes they were CIA. Mac has also discovered dead Russian military advisors in the camp, so Dutch throws Dylan against the wall in a move that the Jungle Hunter will pull on Dutch in their final confrontation. He forces Dylan to admit the truth about his mission. The guerrillas were going to invade the unknown country in Central America with weapons and other assets provided by the Soviets. Dylan and the CIA had been trying to find this camp and stop this from happening, and after his initial two teams failed, Dylan brought in Dutch and his men to do the dirty work. Hawkins picks up on the radio that more guerrillas are moving into the area, so they head out with Anna in tow to make it to their extraction point. We see that the Jungle Hunter is still watching them and stalking them, and it records Mac's voice, analyzing repeatedly the line, "Over here," watching as Mac intimidatingly kills a scorpion on Dylan's shoulder. Initially, I thought they stuck a live scorpion to the end of the knife with just some goo so that they wouldn't have to injure it. But in the director's commentary, John McTiernan said that they did hurt the scorpion, but waved it off because he claims they only hurt one.
Yes, it was a real scorpion. It was a creature which was indeed hurt for this production, but there was only one.
Yautja's recording and projecting their praise vocalizations will become a staple of the franchise. It's one of the coolest and creepiest things about them. The Jungle Hunter also records Billy's laugh, and he will call it back during the big climax of the film. Now, Billy turns, maybe faintly hearing his laugh being analyzed by the creature in the trees. The Jungle Hunter surveys the carnage and even picks up the dead scorpion, fascinated by human behavior. It's clear that these men are the ultimate trophies for this Yautja to hunt, which explains why he will keep their skulls. On the trek, Blaine says to Mac,
"This shit's something. Makes Cambodia look like Kansas."
Cambodia shares a border with Vietnam, which led the US military to deploy within that country as the Vietnam War expanded. Every member of Dutch's team likely fought in Vietnam, which is probably why none of them were that impressed by Dylan's little brag earlier in the back of the helicopter. And it's interesting Mac said that because he will indeed lose it here and get a world of hurt. Billy knows that something is up. He grips the pouch hanging from around his neck and stares intently into the jungle. He and Dutch both try to spot the hunter. Anna tries to run here. This gives the Jungle Hunter the opportunity he needs to start picking this group off one by one. Hawkins catches up with Anna, but we hear the clicking call of the Yautja, who emerges from the jungle in his stealth cloak, making him appear appear only as a rippling distortion in the jungle. To achieve this visual effect, the special effects team created a solid red version of the Predator costume that the actor would wear in the shot, and then they would get the same shot without the actor present to use the background to fill in. By using an optical printer, they would key out the red suit and replace it with the clear background shot with the added distortion to create this rippling effect. The effects team was even nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects for the techniques they used in this film. They lost to Interspace. They also designed a red suit for a monkey to wear to try to get some shots of the jungle hunter climbing trees, but apparently the suit freaked the monkey out and it just ran up the tree and hid. Oh. And there was even a red suit made for the original scrapped creature design, which made that version look even worse. In the lore, the Yautja's cloaking device bends light around the wearer, making the area physically behind them visible, only with some distortion. In an instant, Hawkins is gone, and Anna is covered in his blood. Anna is not attacked here because she doesn't have a weapon, something Dutch will pick up on later. Even though the Yautja hunt their prey with immense technological advantage, they do have a code about hunting the unarmed. When the rest of the team catches up, they only find Hawkins' entrails. Pancho asks Anna in Spanish what happened and translates her answer as, quote, "The jungle came alive and took him." Dylan, who also speaks Spanish, calls bullshit on Pancho's translation, saying what Anna said actually doesn't make any sense. Technically, Dylan is right, because all Anna said was, the jungle took him. She never actually said it came alive. Pancho added that part, but Dylan is being a little pedantic. Dutch notices that whoever took Hawkins didn't take his radio or weapon, so it's not more guerrilla fighters attacking them. They find Hawkins' body is already up in the treetops. Blaine thinks he's got a lock on the enemy, but it's just a porcupine. He turns just as the Predator tries to kill him with a projectile from a spear gun, which glances off Blaine's neck, stunning him. He finishes the job with a plasma bolt from the plasma caster. Blaine takes one right through the MTV logo and is down for good. Predator killed the TV star? Didn't work. But the Predator likely wanted to use the spear gun for a silent kill to avoid alerting the rest of the soldiers. Didn't work here, because Mac gets a look at the cloaked jungle hunter, whose eyes immediately flash yellow from the biomask, and then Mac unloads his M60 machine gun at the target and unknowingly manages to hit him once, leaving behind a splash of that glowing green blood. The effects team created this blood by mixing the insides of glow sticks with lubricant. Anna is the only one who notices this blood and saves some on her pants for later, but then Mac picks up Old Painless and starts shooting wildly into the jungle. The whole squad arrives and follows suit, not even knowing what they're firing at. It's insane. But in the end, Pancho points out,
No blood, no bodies. We hit nothing.
They regroup and set up a defensive perimeter to wait out the night and try to call for backup and extraction. Max sets up claymore mines and flares with tripwires to prevent anyone or anything from sneaking up on them. When Mac eulogizes his friend Blaine, Alan Silvestri's score has some motifs that I feel like he expands upon later in Captain America: The First Avenger, specifically the tracks Captain America Main Titles and Triumphant Return. Mac's flask has a motto of the US Army Special Forces, De Oppresso Liber, meaning from oppression we will liberate them, though according to Wikipedia, the literal translation is from being an oppressed man to being a free one. The jungle hunter tends to his bullet wound, giving the audience our first look at this creature out of its stealth cloak, though mostly in close-ups. A great opportunity here to see the detail of Stan Winston's design. As it sutures the wound and cries out in pain, we get a quick glimpse at its head and biomask. Its cry is heard by the group, unnerving Anna the most, who knows that this is not a typical jungle noise. They need to make it back across the border for extraction at 10:30 the next morning, and the people picking them up know that Dylan has taken Anna prisoner, which does explain how Anna is able to convince the general to come retrieve Dutch at the end. As night falls, they give Mac the first watch. He talks to the moon as if he's talking to Blaine, vowing to get revenge on whoever killed him. A wild boar sets off some of the flares, and Mac goes berserker mode on it, stabbing it to death. But in the commotion, the jungle hunter steals Blaine's body without setting off any of the other traps. Dutch starts to put the pieces together.
Came in to get the body. It's killing us one at a time.
Like a hunter.
If this movie was still called The Hunter, that would be the titular line there. Dutch realizes the jungle hunter is moving around the jungle, not on the ground, but in the trees. Anna reveals she can speak English the whole time. She also reveals that their hunter got wounded and bled, therefore,
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Anna will also equate their current threat to a local legend.
When I was little, we found a man. He looked like butchered. The old women in the village crossed themselves and whispered crazy things, strange things. El diablo cazador de hombres. Only in the hottest years this happens. And this year it grows hot. We begin finding our man. We found them sometimes without their skin. And sometimes much, much worse. Que hace trofeos de los hombres means the demon who makes trophies of man.
I don't know if this means the Yautja have hunted in this particular area before, or if just the actions of this jungle hunter just fits the bill of warnings passed down through the generations in stories and legends to explain any kind of unusual or tragic things that could happen. But various comics would imply that the Yautja were here and really all over the planet over the centuries. Dutch decides it's time to make a stand. Dutch and the crew build a big trap for their hunter. Dylan questions this tactic.
You really think this Boy Scout bullshit's gonna work?
But Dutch reasons that if the enemy can sense their tripwire and mines, maybe it won't notice an organic trap made of rope and vines. This sequence sets up Dutch's ability to build his Home Alone-esque set of traps for the jungle hunter in the final act. Dutch acts as the cheese to lure the creature into the trap, but he blasts his way out. Dylan gets a look at him and decides to go after the jungle hunter to try to buy time for Dutch to get the rest of the crew to the chopper. Dutch tosses Dylan an extra gun so he can dual wield like he's in a video game. He catches it with his right arm, which will soon get blown off with the gun still firing. Mac pursues the enemy, quoting the lyrics from Longtail Salary that we heard as they flew in the helicopter into the jungle. As Dylan catches up to him, we hear Mac whispering, "Over here," like he did back at the gorilla's base. We think it might be the jungle hunter playing the recording he made earlier, but it is actually just Mac getting Dylan's attention. So even we, the viewers, are feeling that kind of paranoia. They try to sneak up on the jungle hunter from behind, but Mac gets targeted by the creature's plasma caster, which uses its distinctive three-pointed laser as its targeting system, another staple of the franchise. So, R.I.P. Mac. Dylan scans the trees and misses the hunter at first, but when he does see him, it's too late. He opens fire, but gets his arm blown off with his finger still squeezing the trigger of the HK-94 that Dutch tossed him earlier. You may know this shot from when Carl Weathers played a role in Arrested Development. Anytime they introduced him, they would cut to this shot of Predator.
He's on the balcony having margaritas with Carl Weathers.
Tobias had recently hired actor Carl Weathers as a drama coach.
It's that iconic. Everything in this movie is iconic. Then the jungle hunter extends 2 wrist blades to finish Dylan off. We're gonna see these bad boys come back in his final fight with Dutch. Every weapon used by this jungle hunter becomes a recurring part of the franchise. It's a real testament to these designs by Stan Winston and his team. Billy decides to stand his ground, but doesn't buy them that much time. He's killed, and Poncho is finished off with a plasma bolt. Anna goes to grab the gun to shoot the creature, but Dutch kicks it out of her hands. He reasons that if she stays unarmed, then the creature might not kill her. Dutch fires his M16 at the jungle hunter, who fires a plasma bolt that slices the gun in half, the shrapnel damaging Dutch's shoulder. And here, Arnold delivers one of his self-admitted favorite lines of dialogue.
Get to the chopper!
Yes, it's one of our favorite lines too. As Anna runs, Dutch escapes the jungle hunter by diving into a river and eventually going over a waterfall. The stuntman who did this jump blew his knee out during the fall, but according to the director's commentary, that was really the only injury on set. There was a deleted sequence here that extended Dutch's escape to the river with the jungle hunter toying with him, but it was smart to cut this out as it did slow down the pace. Dutch crawls to safety on the banks of the river, covering himself in mud, which he discovers masks him from the jungle hunter's infrared heat vision, but I think we can admit that in real life this would not work because that mud would get warm pretty quickly. As the creature emerges from the river in pursuit, his stealth cloaking device begins to malfunction, something pulled off with some really great 80s rotoscoping of crackling and arcing electricity. I always think this looks really cool. Dutch is ready to make his final stand. We get another montage of Dutch building more primitive traps, a bow, and even some explosive arrows made with gunpowder from rifle grenades. We see Dutch set up the dual traps of the spikes and the falling log that he'll eventually use to incapacitate the jungle hunter. If fancy guns were no match for the alien Yautja, it's time to go old school. Also during this montage, we see how the jungle hunter makes his trophies as he gruesomely rips out the spine and the skull from Billy's corpse, and then he uses disintegrator gas to decompose the organic remains around the skull to quickly clean it. This won't get brought back in the franchise until Dan Trachtenberg's Prey movie. The jungle hunter's collection of skulls made from Dutch's crew includes Max with a giant hole made from the bolts of the plasma caster. The skull trophy collection will become another franchise staple, even all the way to the upcoming Predator Badlands, where the collection includes some interesting alien Easter eggs in there. The Yautja also has some smaller animal skulls around his chest, including a snapping turtle near the shoulder. He's been working his way up to humans. The jungle hunter does his own prep for the battle by using his 3-point laser from his plasma caster to clean and temper his wrist blades after having used them on Dylan. When Dutch is ready to fight, he lets out a primal roar, similar to his buddy Dylan's death roar, and I think it's this moment where the jungle hunter is like, you know what? Whatever happens in this fight, I'm gonna freak him out with my own kind of bellowing war cry, but I'm gonna do it in the form of his buddy's laugh. But in this moment, the jungle hunter reacts as if something in this jungle has finally startled him. Dutch hides in the trees covered in mud as the jungle hunter is drawn to the bonfire, passing right by him. Dutch uses an explosive arrow to disrupt the jungle hunter's stealth cloak, which crackles with more awesome rotoscoping. Whatever damage it took before was not fully repaired. The jungle hunter fires his plasma caster wildly into the trees. He cannot see Dutch, but he wants to flush him out. As the jungle hunter gives chase, actor Kevin Peter Hall does some impressive leaping in the suit that weighed close to 200 pounds, though he was given some additional help on set from support cables. Dutch is able to get a close hit on the jungle hunter with an explosive spear, drawing blood and creating a trail that Dutch can now follow. But our Yautja uses this to lay a trap to corner the nearly invisible Dutch, just like Dutch did to him with the net. Another great rack focus as we see the Predator's glowing blood dripping behind Dutch. The jungle hunter cleverly blasts the branch Dutch tries to swing on, causing him to fall in the water and wash off the mud camouflage. The jungle hunter's wrist blades expand outward so he can trap Dutch's head. The Yautja wants to toy with his prey before killing him. This hubris will ultimately be his downfall. The jungle hunter pins Dutch to the wall, just like Dutch did to Dylan and the gorilla camp. Here you can really see how Kevin Peter Hall's height makes him a monster opponent for Arnold. He examines Dutch's skull that he wants so badly, and then he makes a decision. If Dutch is willing to cast aside his advanced weaponry and go primal, then this Yautja wants to do the same. He removes his plasma caster and his biomask, giving the world our first look at the Yautja's true face, and it is glorious. This must have been quite a shock for audiences in 1987. Who probably just assumed the biomask was the face of the Yautja. So having this additional reveal in the third act is just awesome. All of the moving parts on the head and the face, including the mandible and the brow ridges, were all remote controlled by Stan Winston's team. The face piece could be removed easily to give Kevin Peter Hall some time to breathe and then cool down between takes, a huge improvement from the first failed creature design. We get more clicking from the jungle hunter, a choice made by legendary voice actor Peter Cullen, who provided the vocalizations for the creature. Yes, Optimus Prime is also the voice of the Predator. After being shown only this mask removal moment of the film for inspiration, Cullen based his vocal work on the sound of a dying horseshoe crab.
I saw this ugly, ugly face and these tentacles like going like this, and it reminded me of a upside down horseshoe crab dying in the sun on a beach when I was a kid.
Without his biomask, we now see from the perspective of the Yautja's true vision spectrum, and it's just kind of a wash of infrared. The jungle hunter starts slapping Dutch around, toying with his prey. Dutch tries to lure him into that spike trap. However, the jungle hunter is too canny for that trick, despite how many times Arnold says, "Come on, do it!" But as he comes around the side, Dutch planned for this contingency and springs the secondary trap, using that big log to smash the hunter. So Dutch at first goes to finish the job with a rock, but tosses it aside. But the jungle hunter uses his wrist gauntlet to initiate the self-destruct feature. The visual storytelling is great here. Even though the digital display has these unknown alien symbols, when combined with the sound cues, we can just instinctively tell it's counting down to something, meaning the Yautja would rather commit suicide and erase evidence of their existence than be captured. And to top it all off, the jungle hunter plays the recording of Billy's laugh. Whoa! To me, this is the most haunting element of the film, because it makes us ask so many questions. Does the Yautja perhaps understand the sensation of joy emitted by its prey and is capable of twisting it in this ironic way to taunt the other human? Meanwhile, some have theorized over the years that the Predator might have played this audio thinking the laugh was Billy back in that moment communicating to Hawkins to get away from me, since Hawkins walked away after that. And maybe the Predator was trying to say, I have to nuke myself according to my code, but you, worthy human, you don't deserve to be in this blast radius, so get away from me. I like that idea, but I really just think the Predator was an asshole, just to taunt him. Dutch runs to avoid the huge blast in the shockwave as we cut to the approaching helicopter carrying Anna and General Phillips on their way to rescue Dutch, nearly knocked out of the sky because it's a freaking mushroom cloud. While the device has been referred to as a wrist nuke, it's not believed to be nuclear or atomic in nature, but it does cover over an area of 300 city blocks. The helicopter pilot here is actually Kevin Peter Hall. John McTiernan gave him a cameo in the movie outside of the Predator suit. Dutch ends up rescued, and the credits roll with these great character cards like it's a sitcom. Yes, a lot of 80s movies did this. Revenge of the Nerds. It even continued to Can't Hardly Wait. I wish movies would do this now, but they don't. Now, while Dutch survives these events, director Dan Trachtenberg of Prey and Killers and now Predator Badlands did confirm in 2025 that there was originally a post-credit scene to Predator Killer of Killers that would have shown Dutch's body in cryostasis, collected by the Yautja species to return and fight in some gladiator combat on their home world. I guess as a rare champion creature that was able to survive a predator. But it is a deleted scene, but it's at least awesome to consider this as Dutch's fate. So next week, this rewatch series will continue in a breakdown of 1990's Predator 2 starring Danny Glover.
You are one ugly mother.
Huge thanks to Brandon Barrick for researching and writing this breakdown script. Comment down below with your thoughts, and a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Bro, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Come on, join us for that breakdown. Do it!